There's a quiet, heavy heartbreak that lives deep inside the chest of anyone who has ever loved a narcissist. It is a lonely kind of pain because it is built entirely on a beautiful, tragic illusion. You carry this exhausting belief that if you could just find a way to be a little softer, a little more patient, or a little more understanding, they would finally have that breakthrough moment. You tell yourself that if you just hold on through one more blow up, or if you forgive them just one more time, they will finally look at you, see the depth of your pain, and choose to change. You keep pouring your energy, your time, and your soul into a bottomless pit, completely convinced that eventually all that love will come back to you in the form of the person you always hoped they could become. If you are watching this video right now, there is a very high chance that you have spent months, consecutive years, or maybe even decades of your life operating under that exact assumption, draining yourself to keep them whole. Let us skip the pleasantries and look directly at the hard, unvarnished truth that you need to hear. Kindness will never fix a narcissist. It does not matter how pure your intentions are. Your compassion will never awaken their conscience. Your endless patience will never soften their rough edges. And your willingness to constantly forgive will never transform them into a healthy partner. In their psychological world, the laws of human connection are completely inverted. The more you sacrifice for them, the less they value what they are receiving from you. To them, your sacrifice is not a sign of love. It is a sign that your boundaries are cheap. But there is one specific calculated move that genuinely shocks a narcissist to their very core. It is something most people never try because it feels entirely unnatural, terrifying, and almost cruel when you first attempt it. Once you truly understand what this hidden mechanism is, the veil will drop and you will never look at your relationships, your past, or your interactions the same way ever again. Before we dive deep into exactly what that psychological shift looks like, take a brief moment right now to subscribe to this channel. If you are someone who is currently trying to heal from narcissistic abuse, rebuild a shattered sense of self-worth, learn how to set non-negotiable boundaries, or simply trying to make sense of the toxic patterns that have controlled your reality for far too long, this space was built specifically for you. Everything shared here is crafted without the fluff to help you step out of the fog and reclaim your peace, your personal power, and your identity. Go ahead and subscribe right now because what you are about to hear next is not just casual information to consume. It is intended to be the spark for a permanent, irreversible shift inside your mindset. To understand why you are so exhausted, we have to look at exactly why your kindness fails so spectacularly with this type of person. From the time we are children, we are taught the golden rule that love conquers all and that if you treat people with respect, they will eventually rise to meet you. When someone we love hurts us, our natural human instinct is to excuse their bad behavior by rationalizing that they must be hurting deeply inside, and that if we can just love them through their darkness, they will heal. These assumptions are beautiful, accurate, and highly effective when you are dealing with emotionally healthy, mature human beings. But a narcissist does not operate on that emotional frequency. They do not interpret your kindness the way a normal person does. When you offer a narcissist your softness, they do not appreciate the gift. They see an opening to exploit. When you hand them your forgiveness after a betrayal, they do not experience a wave of relief and grace. They see it as a green light and an explicit permission slip to do it again. When you give them yet another chance to do the right thing, they are not sitting there admiring your loyalty. They are calculating your exact tolerance level for mistreatment. Every single time you respond to their calculated cruelty with empathy and understanding, you are unknowingly teaching them a dangerous lesson that hurting you is completely free and carries no real consequence. You are not being weak and you are not being naive for doing this. You are simply being human, doing exactly what any emotionally intelligent person would do to save a relationship. The deep tragedy of loving a narcissist is that the very qualities that make you a beautiful, safe partner are the exact same qualities they target and weaponize against you. Your empathy becomes their personal playground. Your patience becomes their license to push you further. And your willingness to look inward and fix your flaws becomes their ultimate excuse to never look at themselves. Slowly, without even realizing how you got there, you become the unpaid emotional caretaker of a person who has absolutely no intention of ever caring for you in return. Why does giving more, loving harder, explaining your feelings better, and trying one more time never produce the breakthrough you have been praying for? It is because narcissism at its absolute core is not a simple misunderstanding or a temporary emotional wound waiting to be healed by the right person. It is a deeply rooted, rigid defense system built entirely on the pathological need for control, superiority, and a constant, uninterrupted supply of emotional reactions from the people around them. A narcissist does not want a partner. They want a compliant mirror that reflects them in the most flattering light possible at all times. They do not want genuine intimacy. They want total access to your emotional reserves. They do not want to be understood by you. They want to be admired, feared, or pitied, depending on which specific emotion gives them the most leverage over you in that exact moment. When you respond to their toxic behavior with kindness, you are not changing their mind. You are simply confirming to them that their manipulation tactics are working perfectly. You are telling them that you will stay, that you will absorb the verbal blow, that you will adjust your reality to fit theirs, and that you will keep showing up to be drained no matter how much they take from you. This is the exact reason why you can apologize 1,000 times for things you did not even do, and still be blamed for the problem. This is why you can explain your perspective with flawless, crystal clear logic and still be deliberately misunderstood. This is why you can give until you are completely empty, only to be accused of never doing enough. The goal of the conversation was never resolution, peace, or compromise. The goal was and always has been total control. As long as you remain emotionally engaged, hyper-reactive, and desperately invested in fixing what they broke, they are winning the only game they know how to play. The entire dynamic of the relationship undergoes a massive permanent shift the exact moment you decide to stop playing their game. Most people waste years trying to shock a narcissist by using the wrong tools. They think the ultimate payback is revenge, but revenge backfires completely because it proves to the narcissist that you are still emotionally hooked, deeply obsessed, and heavily entangled in their web. People think screaming, crying, or creating massive scenes will wake them up, but chaos is actually a narcissist's natural environment. They thrive in the storm, and they know exactly how to navigate it to make you look like the crazy one. Threats, begging, pleading, or trying even harder to fix things fail just as miserably because every single one of those responses hands your personal power directly back to them on a silver platter. When you beg, you confirm their ultimate superiority. When you threaten, you give them ammo to weaponize against you later. When you try harder, you are simply doing exactly what they have conditioned you to do every time they pull away. What genuinely destabilizes a narcissist to their very core has absolutely nothing to do with drama. It is your total, absolute, ironclad emotional detachment. It is the emergence of your quiet, unshakable, fully reclaimed self. The exact second you drop the rope and stop reacting, stop explaining your logic, stop defending your character, stop chasing their validation, and stop needing them to finally understand your point of view, something inside their internal world begins to violently collapse. You have to realize that their power never actually belonged to them. It did not live in their fake charm, their intelligence, their looks, or their cruel words. Their power lived entirely inside your emotional reaction to them. Your reaction is the fuel that keeps their engine running. And the moment that reaction vanishes into thin air, their entire grip on your life completely dissolves. Every single confusing thing they did throughout the relationship was a highly calculated move designed to keep you off balance. The cruel silent treatments that left you panicking, the sudden bursts of overwhelming affection, the crazy gaslighting, and the tiny breadcrumbs of love that kept you starving but alive were all systematically engineered to keep you swinging wildly between extreme hope and deep despair. In psychology, this toxic loop is known as intermittent reinforcement, and it functions exactly like a slot machine in a casino, serving as the precise psychological mechanism behind gambling addiction. You do not stay in a toxic relationship because it is good. You stay because the extreme unpredictability creates a literal chemical obsession inside your nervous system. Your brain becomes entirely addicted to the massive highs of their validation simply because the lows of their rejection are so utterly unbearable. This is why you can never logic your way out of a deep trauma bond. You cannot think your way clean. You have to actively starve it. And you starve it by refusing to feed the toxic cycle with a single ounce of your emotional energy. The very moment you go genuinely quiet, not a loud, angry silence meant to punish them, but a cold, heavy silence born out of pure, unadulterated indifference, the narcissist will internally panic. They might double down on their cruelty, fly into a terrifying rage, smear your reputation to anyone who will listen, or suddenly flip the switch and transform back into the most attentive, charming person you have ever met. Underneath all of that desperate noise is a hidden, terrifying fear of their own irrelevance. To a narcissist, being completely unimportant to you feels like an actual psychological death sentence. They cannot handle being ignored because it strips away their entire sense of existence. This exact moment of panic is where most victims break down and make the devastating mistake of going back. When the narcissist senses they are losing their grip on you, they will suddenly deploy a masterclass performance. They will look you in the eyes and say the exact specific words you waited months or years to extract from them. They will cry real tears, make grand promises about the future, and mimic deep self-reflection just well enough to make you believe that something has finally shifted inside them. But you must understand this truth with every single cell of your being. That performance is not a transformation. It is pure, raw survival. It is nothing more than a predator protecting its food supply. The second you let your guard down and step back into that room, the mask drops instantly. The toxic cycle resumes with an intensity that is often twice as bad as before because now they have tested your boundaries and they know the exact psychological price it takes to pull you right back into the trap. If these patterns are finally clicking into place for you right now, take a second to hit that subscribe button. The journey out of narcissistic abuse is never a single massive decision made all at once. It is a series of 1,000 small, difficult choices made every single day to actively choose reality over a beautifully painted illusion. You deserve a steady, direct voice in your corner to remind you daily that you are not crazy, you are not too sensitive, and you are not wrong for wanting peace. Subscribe now and let this space be the anchor that keeps you firmly grounded in your reality while you rebuild your life. True emotional detachment is widely misunderstood because people often mistake it for a loud, aggressive display of anger, coldness, or bitterness. But real detachment does not carry that heavy, burning resentment. True emotional detachment is actually a profound, quiet moment of internal clarity. It is the exact second your exhausted nervous system finally accepts the reality of the situation, drops its defenses, and completely stops trying to build a peaceful home inside a relentless psychological storm. Reaching this point means you completely stop acting as their emotional translator. You stop taking their blatant cruelty, disrespect, and manipulation and rewriting it into something more palatable just to keep your hope alive. You completely stop making convenient excuses for their toxic behavior, wrapping it up in phrases about how they just had a terrible childhood or how they are under so much stress at work, or telling yourself that they did not really mean to hurt me. You finally stop editing the reality of who they are, and you courageously allow them to be exactly the person they have consistently shown you they are through their repeated actions. This profound internal shift is the exact place where real, unshakable boundaries are born. Most of us have been taught completely wrong about what a boundary actually is. We think a boundary is a big, dramatic announcement we have to make, or a threat we issue during a heated argument, or a rule we desperately try to negotiate with someone who does not care about our feelings. But true boundaries are completely silent. They are never announced. They are never weaponized as threats, and they are absolutely never up for negotiation. True boundaries do not live in the words you speak. They live entirely within your physical behavior. You do not need to explain a boundary to a narcissist because you are not trying to change their behavior. You are completely changing your own response to them. It is an internal standard that you set for yourself, and it requires zero explanation to anyone else. When you understand this, the way you interact with a toxic person changes entirely. A real boundary is when a text message comes in at midnight or a toxic phone call starts and you simply do not answer it. You do not send a long paragraph explaining why you are not answering. You just leave the phone dark. A real boundary is the exact moment you completely stop explaining your logic, your feelings, or your perspective to someone who has proven time and time again that they are fully committed to deliberately misunderstanding you. A real boundary is when you quietly, calmly stand up and physically walk away from a room, a conversation, or a family event. The exact second you are disrespected, without demanding an apology and without starting a scene, you do not scream at them to treat you better. You simply remove your presence from their environment. It is an ironclad standard you build to keep your own peace and sanity safe. not a wall you build to try and negotiate terms with the predator. You have to realize that narcissists were never actually afraid of your anger, your screaming, or your tears. In fact, they absolutely loved it when you lost your temper because your pain and frustration served as premium fuel for their ego. Your distress proved to them that they still had total control over your emotional state. What they are deeply, terrifyingly afraid of is your complete peace and your utter indifference. When you transform into a person who can no longer be baited by their insults, a person who can no longer be guilted into compliance, a person who cannot be won over by fake flattery, and a person who absolutely refuses to be shamed or manipulated, you become something they have never encountered before. You become a person they can no longer control. Your complete self-possession and inner stillness become the single most disorienting, destabilizing force in their entire universe because you have finally taken back the power they stole from you. Your healing was never about teaching them a lesson, forcing them to see the error of their ways, or waiting for a heartfelt apology that you are realistically never going to receive. The true, undeniable victory in this journey happens the exact moment you completely stop measuring your personal progress by their external behavior. If you are constantly checking to see if they are sorry, if they are miserable without you, or if they have changed for someone else, you are still letting them dictate your emotional state. When your daily peace depends entirely on what they do, what they say, or how they live their life, they still own the keys to your inner world. The real breakthrough comes when their actions become completely irrelevant to your existence. True victory is when you can hear their name drop casually in a conversation and your stomach no longer drops into a pit of anxiety. It is the moment you finally stop opening their social media profiles to spy on their life, stop rehearsing imaginary arguments in the shower, and completely accept that closure is not something they hand to you. Closure is a gift you choose to give to yourself. You were fully allowed to walk away from anyone who only knows how to love you in broken fragments and crumbs. You were allowed to simply be done, to choose a quiet, predictable life of peace over a loud, exhausting life of endless chaos, and to let them think or say whatever twisted version of the story they want to think about you. You do not need to correct their narrative, you just need to live your truth. Of course, this journey is not a straight line, and there will inevitably be days when you deeply miss the beautiful fantasy of who they could have been if they had just chosen to do the inner work. When those moments hit, you must let yourself grieve that loss, but you must remain fiercely rooted in reality. Remind yourself that you are missing a ghost, a character they played, not the actual person who repeatedly hurt you. When doubt creeps back into your mind and tells you that maybe you gave up too soon, remember that it is just the old trauma bond speaking to you in a voice that sounds exactly like your own. You have to actively choose to listen to your healed self, not your wounded self. Slowly over time, the instinctive urge to flinch at a phone notification or endlessly replay old conversations from years ago will entirely fade away. You will suddenly catch yourself laughing freely, trusting your own perception of reality without second-guessing yourself, and choosing your own well-being without a single ounce of guilt. They did not win. They simply exposed the deep territory inside your own soul that was waiting to be reclaimed by you. They are never shocked by your rage, your outbursts, or your attempts to use your success as a weapon against them, because all of those things tell them they still matter to you. What truly shocks a narcissist to their core is your absolute wholeness, your immovable stillness, and your total refusal to be pulled back into their drama by their old emotional hooks. The fact that you can understand their psychology deeply, wish them well from a distance, and still choose to walk away forever is a level of power they can neither mimic nor manipulate. You never needed to be a kinder person. You never needed to try harder to fix things. And you never needed to love them louder. You just needed to finally come home to yourself. Every single moment you consciously choose your own peace over their manufactured chaos completely rewrites the story of your life. If these words spoke directly to something deep inside you today, take a quick moment right now to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone in your life who desperately needs to hear this truth. This channel is a dedicated space for people who are completely done being managed, minimized, manipulated, and misunderstood by toxic personalities. The very next time you feel that familiar magnetic pull to go back to explain yourself one more time or to soften your boundaries just a little bit, remember this essential truth. They were never shocked by your kindness. They were only ever shocked by your absolute absence. Keep choosing the version of you they could never break.